Ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Fair Ones and Fairways. Not just any edition, but a special edition. Shout out to my man, Manny, in the building, hanging out with us today.
Shout out to Manny, man.
Hey, it's a hard job to make me look good on camera. I don't even know if that's possible, but we got the cameras rolling today, which is dope, man, because, I mean, we're doing this for a very special occasion, Fernando.
Yeah, no, it's the biggest fight, in my opinion, in at least the last 20 years.
Man.
So, I mean, this is a big event for sure. One of the biggest on the boxing calendar.
Absolutely.
If not the biggest. So yeah, this is a very important and very special episode for sure.
Yeah, man. Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Bud Crawford. We're going to get into it. And, of course, we couldn't have an episode this important without bringing in on the phone our good friend all the way from O City, my man Ivory Towns from the Whatever You Say podcast. Ivory, what's up, my brother?
Fellas, thank you so much, man. I'm sorry I missed the last one, but this one right here is very, very important, man. Glad I can get this one in with y'all, man. Big fight coming up.
Hey, man, huge fight coming up, you know, and again, just to kind of look back at the year that we've had, that is 2022, Fernando, 2023. Because 2022 was a pretty good year, too.
Yeah, it was.
But nothing really compares to this year.
No, not at all. It's been a signature year. And, you know, we talk about this before in a lot of episodes that, you know, and I've said it a lot, that it's very reminiscent of the 90s. Yeah. Back when we had the Don King shows with the supercards, with the Chavez and Tyson fight.
Only in America, baby.
You know, Riddick Bowe, Holyfield, and all those supercars from back in the 90s.
Right.
So it kind of reminds me of that era, and it's a good feeling to be back in those type of days, man.
I mean, we're actually getting the fights that we want, and we could go down that list, right? We've had so many great fights this year. There's a few good fights still left, including what I think, like you said, man, the biggest fight in quite some time, the undefeated versus undefeated, a chance for an undisputed champion. Two guys who are not just fighting each other, but fighting each other in their prime. I mean, again, Fernando, this just doesn't happen very often.
No, it does not. And we talk about fights that get made, you know, maybe too soon or too late. This one is being made at the right time.
Right time.
Right at their peak, at the time when they're both considered, you know, top pound-for-pound guys.
Right.
You know, there's a debate for either one of them that could be the number one. So this is the perfect time for it. There's just there would be no excuse, and it's for all the marbles. So this is a big super fight.
Big super fight. Big time. Of course, Errol Spence Jr., versus Terence Bud Crawford. Let me go ahead and break it down here, and we've got some information to share. I mean, let's jump right into it because, again, this is what we're here to talk about today. Primarily, there's also another big fight happening that we're going to talk about as well, too. But let's jump into the main event. Errol Spence Jr., 33 years old from DeSoto, Texas, out there in the Dallas area. His record is 28-0 with 22 knockouts. I repeat, 28-0. With 22 knockouts. You know the kind of power this guy has. He's 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. He's got 3 of those belts, the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF. His trainer, of course, is Trainer of the Year, recent Trainer of the Year, Derek James. What a camp that is out there.
It's a very, very strong camp. And one thing that's interesting to me about Derek James is he said that he's sticking with what he has right now. He's not adding anybody else.
Right.
He's going to retire with his current stable.
Wow.
Which to me, you know, that shows a lot of commitment to the guys he has. He's choosing, you know, quality over quantity.
Right.
Because you do see fighters, you know, who end up, you know, with other coaches who don't have time for them. You know, coach who gets overwhelmed. You know, you got guys like Freddie Roach and, you know, Robert Garcia who got like, 20, 30-plus fighters.
Right.
So you're kind of stretched a little bit thin. And, you know, Derek James he's saying he's sticking to the guys that he has. He's going to stick with them, and that's who he's going to retire with. To me, that's actually it's commendable, but it's also very interesting because you don't always really see somebody say that.
I don't remember seeing that before.
No.
So again, exclusive company over there, you know, with Derek James, who was just, like I said, awarded Trainer of the Year. And by the way, I found out watching All Access. Have you had a chance to see?
I've seen them both already.
A practicing Buddhist?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Like how are you a practicing Buddhist and you literally teach violence?
Yeah. But you know what? You need that kind of patience though to deal with some of these fighters. If you're a coach and you've dealt with some fighters, you've seen some personalities. Yeah. Maybe you need to become a Buddhist. Maybe I need to become a Buddhist. I don't know.
Whatever works, man. Whatever works. It's working for these guys.
Yeah, it works.
And of course, Terence Bud Crawford, 35 years old. So just a couple years older, 2 years older than his opponent in Errol Spence. Terence Bud Crawford, 35 from Omaha, Nebraska. Look at this record. 39-0 with 30 knockouts.
Very impressive.
Again, Bud ain't no joke, man. He's 5'9", with actually a reach advantage of 74 inches. So a couple arms stretch out a couple inches longer. He's got the big WBO belt. And his trainer, longtime just figure in his life, Bomac, Brian McIntyre. They've got a pretty well documented relationship.
Yeah, they do. But they also have it's like a team effort there.
Right.
You know, they have Bomac, they have Isao Dominguez, or I hope I pronounced his last name right.
Sure.
Dieguez, I'm sorry.
Dieguez.
Isao Dieguez. And they have another guy there. I can't remember his name, but the three of them, you know, collectively work together. And, you know, they've achieved great success. You know, they made Crawford the best pound-for-pound fighter in boxing. So, you know, their situation's a little different where, you know, Derek James is sticking to just what he has, and it's really him. He runs the show there.
Right.
Versus over here, it's three guys that are coming together to work with Crawford and making him the best. So I think, but it's still a situation that works, you know.
Listen, I want to get into really breaking this fight down and also start talking about their notable fights. But before I do that, Ivory, just real quick, man. I mean, you know these two fighters. Again, you're a big time, fan of the sport of the sweet science. Has your opinion changed at all since this fight was first announced, since they first started talking about it, to where you are now with how you feel about the fight? Or are you pretty much at the same place now as you were when they announced the fight?
Yeah, I'm pretty much at the same place. I've had Bud Crawford from the jump. And, Errol Spence, I mean, he's no joke. He has a little more get up and go, a little more, ferocious style to his fighting. Bud Crawford likes to probably give you a couple of rounds to try to figure you out and take you out of there. But one thing with Bud Crawford or the main thing that kind of sets the tone and difference, and both of them are pretty stoic and they carry their heart in their sleeve, and they're prideful guys. But I just think Bud Crawford maybe it's just personality. He's just a little more locked in. I feel like I've seen Errol Spence Jr. hanging out with Yellow Beezy and a couple of Dallas rappers. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. No. I just feel like Bud is locked a little bit tighter, and or should I say, maybe Errol Spence enjoys that celebrity profile a little more than Bud does, as far as the way he lets people know that he's out there, and he's just a little more prideful and boastful with his. Either way is fine, as far as especially the way that they've come out and handled business so far in their careers. But now nothing has really changed my mind. And one thing that when you brought up that reach differential between the two, it took me back to a football coach. I was interviewing a football coach, and he said the perfect offensive lineman, is a midget with long arms. And you know what? He's not a midget, but for that weight class and for him to be, at that, what is he, 5'8", 5'9", somewhere around there?
Right.
Those are unusually long arms for a guy that size. So that's one advantage he has going for him. And it took me back to that when you said that, when you brought up that reach advantage. So now my mind hasn't changed, man. I wouldn't be surprised either way, but I'm leaning towards Bud.
Great point. And can we talk about that? Because there's a lot to break down about this fight. Let's talk about the point that Ivory just brought up here. Just the kind of demeanor of these guys.
Yeah.
It is a little bit different. And I can understand what Ivory's saying. Terence Crawford does seem a little bit more lively in his demeanor.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say intense, because he is a cool customer, but if we're comparing the two in that way.
Yeah.
And he's right. Errol Spence, listen, he's this Southern guy. He's talking about, taking Bud Crawford and smoking on Bud. Yeah. He looks like he's been doing that because he's so lackadaisical. Yeah. He's so chill.
Yeah.
But that to me has always been a misleading thing for him.
Even the way he speaks, he sounds like he's almost slurring his words. He's just too chilled out.
He's just always on one. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But he's not, though. That's just his default, which again, I think brings to the uniqueness of who Errol Spence Jr. is.
Yeah.
But you kind of get what Ivory's saying there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and again, appearances can be deceiving,
Sure.
If you listen to Mike Tyson speak, you wouldn't think he was the baddest man on the planet at one point. But if you watch him,
boy,
you know. So
yeah.
So it's the same thing with Errol Spence. He's maybe a little chilled out in his personality, but when he gets in the ring, he takes care of business.
He takes care of business, man. And it's things about Errol Spence's personality that have got me so excited for this fight. Let me ask you the same question, Fernando. Are you in the same place now week of the fight as that you were when this fight was first talked about and announced?
Yeah, I am. I just feel that, Terence Crawford has more in the arsenal. He's got more weapons. He's got more experience. He takes care of his big fights. He stops his guys. I mean, he can finish you with either hand. He's a great switch hitter. And I'm not taking away from Errol Spence. I mean, he's still a great southpaw. He's got great pop on both hands. But I just feel that Terence Crawford just has a little bit more in his arsenal. And I really am leaning towards a stoppage win for Bud.
Bud by stoppage.
Stoppage in about 10 rounds.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I'm going to give my take here in a minute too, but I do want to jump into like the notable fights, right?
Yeah.
And boy, let me tell you, man, I've been feeling a certain kind of way about this fight, and my mind started second guessing when I started comparing notable fights. Let's start with notable fights for Errol Spence. TKO victory over Yordenis Ugas, which is a great victory.
Impressive win, yeah, for sure.
He's got a unanimous decision victory over Danny Garcia, a split decision over Sean Porter, a unanimous decision over the undersized Mikey Garcia,
yeah,
and then a knockout victory over Kell Brook. And he hurt Kell Brook.
Yeah, I think he effectively ended Kell Brook's run,
right,
as a peak fighter.
Right.
I think he ended him, and of course, Crawford got him out of there, but when Crawford got him, it was a shell of his former self.
And if you're keeping notes here, that's 5 notable fights, 2 of them by stoppage, the rest by decision. One of them is a split decision,
yeah.
The fight against Porter. If I go over to Crawford and start talking about his notable fights, I've got 8 here on my list, really could be 9. And they're all stoppages except one. He had a unanimous decision victory over Victor Postol. We're talking about TKOs, all TKOs of Sean Porter, Kell Brook, Amir Khan, Jose Benavidez Jr., Jeff Horn, John Molina Jr., Yuriorkis Gamboa. He stopped all those guys.
Exactly. And, Gamboa at the time was seen as this emerging star.
Yeah.
Victor Postol had knocked out Matisse.
Uh-huh.
And so he was a big name at the time.
Right.
Sean Porter had never been stopped. He'd been competitive with everybody he fought. We saw what happened there. So, Crawford gets his guys out of there.
Right.
He gets his guys out of there. And, Spence, he was competitive with Danny Garcia. Mm-hmm. Danny Garcia was able to compete with him. Sean Porter gave him difficult moments. That's why it was a split decision. Now, I don't want to lean too much into, because I was kind of doing it before, but I don't want to lean too much into comparing results, because we used to do that with Pacquiao and Mayweather.
Right.
Pacquiao would get Mayweather's guys out of there quicker, mm-hmm. but then we saw what happened in the fight. So,
right.
So anything could happen in boxing.
Styles make fights.
Styles make fights, for sure. But, it's very eye-catching, right? Crawford's getting his guys out of there, and Spence is, being in competitive decisions.
Right. And there's reasons for that. There could be reasons for that. Like you said, the styles in such a way. I think opponents prepare for these fighters in a different kind of way and think and kind of execute or fail to execute in a certain kind of way against their opposition, and that looks a little bit different when you face a Terence Crawford. That looks a little bit different when you face an Errol Spence. Ivory, were you going to say something there?
Is Spence the biggest fighter Crawford has gone against?
Size-wise?
Isn't the height?
Maybe, yeah. I know Jeff Horn was kind of a big
Jeff Horn's a big guy, yeah.
But, he wasn't as good,
right?
Sure, but maybe Jeff Horn was a big dude.
Benavidez also had a little size to him.
Benavidez did have a little size to him,
yeah. Yeah, but I
think Crawford's footwork, man. Just the way he, his footwork isn't 1, 2, 3. It's maybe a side step, 1, 2, 3, back up, another diagonal kind of duck behind. Now I'm on the side of you. It's very fluid, but it's pretty. It has a lot of variety to it. Also, I think one thing Spence brings is a lot more, fundamental kind of old school, more of the normal kind of boxing style. I think Bud adds a little different, little pizzazz and footwork to his.
I think Spence is a little more traditional in the way that he fights. But, however, right, the the way that he goes about it. Because listen, you're right. Crawford as well, too. Very crafty.
Yeah.
Very crafty. Works the angles, dynamics. Obviously, very well documented how effective of a switch hitter he is, going from conventional stance to the southpaw stance. I mean, he does this thing like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Just from one moment to the next, he's switching up on you and creating new angles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing what Bud Crawford can do in there. And sure, Spence has a little bit more of your traditional pressure fighter features, just kind of a little bit more flat-footed, kind of coming forward, but constant pressure. Constant pressure. And let me tell you something. When he does get to his target, he inflicts serious damage.
Yep.
And that's what keeps his opponents on their bike all night. That may be why he has more decisions.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, for example, when Mikey Garcia, I think when he caught a taste of his power, he wanted no part of it anymore.
That was it.
That was it. He just was happy to just go 12 rounds.
I'm not engaging anymore.
And but the one thing that's interesting for me too is we talk about how great of a switch hitter Crawford is. I really am wondering if he's going to at any point go southpaw with this natural southpaw. You know, it's in most cases when you fight a natural southpaw and you switch southpaw with him, it's almost like going into the mouth of a lion.
Right.
And so I wonder if Crawford's going to want to do that with Spence.
You know, I wonder if he'll do it. Again, that's right. That's why this matchup is so intriguing. That's why we're going to pay the upcharge pay-per-view price that they're charging so we can see this fight. You know what I mean? We're going to see it. We want to see, who really is the best, who can do, because we know, and again, I'll go ahead and jump into my take on this here. I will admit, and we talked about this yesterday as we were kind of getting ready for this show. I will admit to you right now that probably the smart, logical money is on Terence Bud Crawford. He just does a few more things. He's got a few more tricks up his sleeve that would say, man, well, if I've got to pick a winner, I'm probably going to, bet on Bud, right?
Yeah.
He's got those switch hitter, he can do that versatility. He does have that kind of unique foot movement and that ability to be where he wants to be and control the fight in that way. That's true. I admit that. However, sometimes there's just a guy who is relentless. There's a guy who won't take no for an answer. As much as you want to deny him, he's going to keep coming for you all night, no matter what you do to him. If you hit him, if you duck him, dodge him, if you're blocking, if you're on your bike, doesn't matter. He's coming for you. And when he gets to you, he's got hands that literally can break bones in your body. Sometimes the answer to skills is just a bad motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're just bad enough to get the job done. And there's something about the demeanor of Errol Spence Jr. I think he's that guy. I think he's that guy. I think he's just bad enough to say, you know what, I understand you've got these skills, but I'm just going to break you. And when you're broken, good luck using those skills. And Terence Crawford has will that seems to be ironclad. I mean, this guy, he is locked in. He's a street guy. This dude, he got it out of nothing. He got it out the mud. I'm not discrediting him. I just think that Errol Spence Jr. is a true throwback fighter. I think he's the kind of fighter that could fight in any era, like Bud Crawford as well too.
Yeah.
But that constant, I just come all day, all night. I'm looking for you. I'm throwing nothing but bullets, nothing but just this, these rocks at you, power punches, nonstop from the beginning to the end, no matter when the end is. And that makes you adjust. I think you're going to have to adjust more than I'm going to need to adjust. That's why I'm going with the Texas guy, Errol Spence Jr.
Yeah, and my only reply to that would be that sometimes that aggressiveness you were describing, it works perfect with a B-level fighter.
Sure.
A C-level fighter.
Sure.
You can stop him. And, when you're a bad motherfucker and you're going with another bad motherfucker who just happens to be a smart motherfucker as well, it just might, it could bite you in the ass. And, Mike Tyson is the one that said, this is a thinking man's sport.
That's right. Tough guys get hurt.
So, that aggressiveness, it could pay off for you. But if there isn't no plan B, C, or D with someone like Terence Crawford, you might get put on your ass. And I'm thinking, we might have a fish fry, and just like he says. So, but that's the big question, right? Will it be a fish fry or are we smoking bud that day?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
What are we doing, Ivory? What are we doing? I mean, I think you've got your pick, but how do you want to respond to that, man?
Well, I will. Let me give you some props on your motivational speaking, because if I was on the fence, me over right there with all that right there, man. Yeah. you might all that good talking you over there doing, man. but let me ask Fernando, as a trainer, I saw the video of Errol Spence. I forgot, was it Ugas? I forgot the fight he was against where he told that story about how he thought his teeth got knocked out.
Yeah, it was Ugas.
And it was his mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ugas. It took him a couple rounds to get his head back right. As a trainer, do you even want your fighter telling that story on fight week against a guy like Bud Crawford?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind. It just, it's an interesting story. But if it's something that maybe he reveals like a potential weakness,
right?
Where he's always like, maybe he says, "Oh, well, I tend to get distracted a lot in the ring," or I start thinking about. Then I would tell my fighter, "Shut the fuck up."
Well, that's kind of what makes you. I think that's what Ivory's getting to. Is it almost makes you worried that this is whether he realizes it or not, even if it's subconsciously, he's worried about something outside of his opponent.
Yeah, like maybe he kind of accidentally slipping out, like saying that he only focuses for certain fights or something like that. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to, analyze it that much, but yeah, I mean, as long as he doesn't reveal too much about something, I wouldn't mind my fighter saying anything like that. It just seems like he was just an interesting story that he was telling for the cameras.
And let me tell you, it's really peculiar because it seems when they go back to the footage of that fight against Ugas, when Spence was fighting Ugas, and he thought that happened when the moment he was talking about, he stopped fighting.
Yeah.
Well, you can't do that against Bud Crawford.
Hey, Crawford might knock out more than your teeth.
Right.
So
he
might knock out 2, 3, or 4 teeth. And
that's right.
You better not stop. You better keep fighting. If you're relentless, like we were just describing.
My hope is that he learned from that moment because you cannot afford to make that kind of mistake against Terence Bud Crawford. So let's get this right here. Go ahead.
I'm Bud Crawford. I was licking my chops when I heard him say something like.
Yeah, no. If I'm Bud Crawford, I'm trying to. Tie up the score. Let's see how many teeth I can knock out for sure.
To be clear, the reason he has issues with his teeth is because the car wreck. It wasn't a man who did that. Yeah. It was. What was it? A Ferrari he was in? What was he in? Lamborghini something?
Yeah, Lamborghini.
Lamborghini. He flipped like 12 times. I mean, again, Errol Spence Jr. is very lucky just to be alive.
Yeah,
and I'll say this too. I'll admit this too. Once. I didn't think he was ever going to fight again. But once
it was looking like that.
Yeah.
It was looking like that, yeah.
Once he announced that he was coming back after that near-death experience, I was like, man, is this dude ever going to be the same? I started thinking, what a shame. This dude was so amazing. He'll never be the same again. But he has proven me wrong. He looked like, if you didn't know that, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, no. I mean, there's been, it's been documented of athletes who go through something like that and they're not the same anymore. So there was no reason to think that Spence wouldn't have been the same, but he came back, and I believe it was Danny Garcia who he fought coming back,
right? Who,
by the way, is not an easy fight.
Come on now,
and he went in there and he took care of business. It was a close fight, competitive fight, but he still won, and he clearly won the fight. To do that coming from that type of a setback, from that type of incident, that's pretty remarkable for sure.
I always wondered, Fernando, how do you think his training changed at all? Like, say those first 3-4 months back from the car crash, or do you think we lessened up on the training a little bit, or maybe certain things we kind of stayed off of? And
it just depends on what. It depends on his injuries. I know he suffered facial injuries, right? So maybe you don't put him in sparring. You don't put him in sparring for a while till that heals up. You kind of start tweaking the training a little bit, kind of to suit his needs, depending on the injuries. But when you come back for a big fight, the training can't be light. It has to be pretty hard. So I imagine he took all the time he needed to heal before they started, training pretty hard.
Yeah, man. I mean, you would hope so. Like I said, I had my doubts that, I didn't think, when I saw that car crash and that car flipping over and over and over the way that it did so violently, I thought, well, he's first of all, he's not going to make it.
Yeah, no,
but he made it. And then I was like, well, he's definitely never going to fight again. He's fighting again. And at the top level, he's a world champion. He's got 3 belts. And he continues to knock people out. And what is going to happen, we'll have to find out coming up this weekend, man. Again, one of the biggest fights that we have ever seen, and really in just quite some time, for sure.
Yeah. And make no mistake, everything that we just described about Spence, that makes him somewhat of a legend. Like he's got a few more things to accomplish, but if he were to retire today, we can call him a legend.
Yeah,
it was it's a legendary thing he did coming back from that.
Absolutely. So let's do this. I think we all have kind of basically said our piece, but just officially, let's do this right now. Official for the books. Where's your money at? Errol Spence Jr., Terence Crawford, one of the biggest fights in recent memory. Fernando, I'm going to start with you. Just official final take, official final pick.
My official final pick is Terence Crawford. I think the fight's going to start out very competitively. They're both going to get their shots in. I think somewhere around the 8th or 9th round, I think Crawford's going to start to punish him a little bit. I think Errol Spence is going to start paying the price for some of what you were just saying about some of that aggressiveness. And in the 10th round, I'm going to say he's going to knock him down, and we're going to see a flurry of punches, and we're going to see a stoppage.
All right. Ivory, how about you, man?
I got Crawford, but I think it goes the distance. Errol Spence, heart of a lion. He's going to give Crawford all he can handle. But I think Crawford just too slick. And both of them too much heart to go down. Has Crawford been touched down?
I don't think he has, but what was his name? I think the guy they call Mean Machine rocked him, and it could have been counted a knockdown if you look at the replays. He put him through a good fight, but I think, and then he faced some adversity with Gamboa. And by the way, Gamboa at that time was undefeated, and he was definitely seen as a future potential star. So he's faced some adversity, but his last few fights have just been one-sided.
Both of them may touch the ground once, but it goes the distance. I got Bud.
Yeah, I can see that happening for sure.
That would be epic.
Make for a great fight.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to stick with my guns, fellas. I know. Listen, I admit I'm going against the grain here, but I at the risk of doing what you're not supposed to do when you're calling fights, go what you want, using heart over logic, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it anyway because I do believe what I said. I think the picture that I painted is a true path to victory here.
Yeah. And it's not far-fetched. I mean, it's not like,
it's the craziest thing you ever heard.
Yeah, it's not like Crawford's fighting a journeyman or a gatekeeper. He's fighting a legit world champion, who's got as much credentials as he does and is also a future potential Hall of Famer. So it's not far-fetched to predict the victory for Spence.
Right. So I'm sticking with it. I'm going with Errol Spence. I think he'll win a decision. And I'm looking forward to it because at the end of the day, right, both these guys are undefeated champions in their prime. Somebody is going to have to be taught by the other one how to lose.
And I think Spence will recover fine. He'll bounce back. And, they're going to fry the fish, but he'll come back and he'll still be Errol Spence. He'll be good.
Right. All right. We'll see about that, man. So we've got our official picks in there. And listen, man, I mean, this is obviously something that, I look forward to coming back and recapping and seeing how the chips actually fall here. But one time for the boxing gods, man, who have made 2023 such a special year. And this is definitely the biggest fight of the year and of many years.
For sure.
And we're really looking forward to it, man. Also, real quick, I want to talk about this too, because there's also another big fight, obviously going to be very overshadowed by Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. But the monster, in a way, is back in the ring, and he's got a nice test coming up.
Yeah. Stan Fulton.
Yeah.
He's a good, slick boxer. He's from Philadelphia, too, so he's got that toughness that Philadelphia fighters are known for.
That's right.
He can take anybody to school on any given night.
Right.
Doesn't have heavy hands, but he's elusive. He can frustrate you, and he's gotten some good wins. He's on a good streak right now.
Will he be able to ask questions of the monster that have never been asked before?
I personally don't think he will.
Okay.
Just because in a way he doesn't seem to respect people's power.
Right.
He doesn't seem. I mean, you saw what he did to Donaire,
man,
and nobody does that to Donaire.
Nobody.
And in a way, said, fuck that, I don't give a shit. Went in there and knocked him out in 2 rounds.
And brutally, too.
Yeah, brutally. It was not, it was a highlight reel knockout. he doesn't take tune-ups, looks like. He jumps straight, goes up to the divisions and takes on the top dog right away. And look, I mean, Inoue has been my number one pound-for-pound fighter, obviously because I penalized Crawford and Spence for not making the fight, last year. But, I mean, he's not just anybody. He's definitely deserving of that number 1 pound spot, too. Like, if Crawford or Spence, maybe lost a fight here and there, I don't think there'd be a problem with anybody putting Inoue as the top guy. I mean, he's got tremendous power in both hands, and he seems to knock out people, in the weight classes when he comes up.
Yeah. 24-0, 21 knockouts.
Yeah, I mean, so dude's a beast. He's every bit the monster that he's advertised as.
Yeah, man. Ivory, have you had a chance to catch up on all the destruction that the monster Inoue has been up to?
They asked me about him yesterday. It didn't register who he was. I didn't know his name.
See, that
I saw some highlights.
Yeah, that happens a lot to these smaller division fighters.
Yeah, for sure. And being from Japan, he's not gonna get a lot of exposure here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad that they're starting to, because I mean he's a great fighter.
Yeah, go ahead, Ivory. I'm sorry.
But no, I didn't know his name just off conversation. But when I saw the video, I was like, oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I've seen these highlights. I've seen this guy get down. But my question, and I read up on Stephen Fulton, and like you said, Hurricane, he's from Philadelphia, so you know what that means. Yeah. He's down for the scrub. My question is, he's a natural 122. He walks, that's what he fights at. Yeah. Inoue has come up 105, 108, or whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, how much of a disadvantage or advantage is that for Fulton? Or Inoue in your mind? I
don't think it's a disadvantage, because the last time he came up in weight against a much taller guy, and people thought he was going to give Inoue problems, and Inoue knocked him out in one round. One round. That's all it took. And so I don't think Inoue really respects power that much in those lower weight classes. Right. I think he knows he's a monster. He's got that power. So I don't think he's in any disadvantage at all. The only thing I can see is maybe if Fulton starts making a miss early and, take him to deep waters and still make a miss, and, I want to see if Inoue can get frustrated, right, and maybe get tested. But I honestly don't see it.
Fulton throws a bunch of punches too, though, right?
Yeah, and I want to see if Fulton can take those punches. I mean, like we said, he's from Philadelphia, so he's probably had some gym wars and sparring that are tougher than some of his fights. For sure. Let's see that Philadelphia heart, and let's see if what Inoue can do with it.
Listen, no disrespect to Stephen Fulton here, because I'm really looking forward to this fight. Yeah. I think that he is going to, if not ask questions, at least pose some problems, some things that Inoue is going to have to do to figure out to get to him. Yeah, I think he at least can possibly do that. But again, no disrespect to Fulton, but Inoue, how far can he go?
Man, he's a little guy for sure, man. And he's come up in the weight classes. I mean, 122 might be the peak. I mean, maybe 126, but at that point you got fighters a little bit bigger than him, right? A little bit more bigger than.
So you think he's about where he's going to stay?
I think he's about where he needs to stay. Okay. I mean, he might challenge himself down the line. Sure. If he keeps knocking these dudes out at 122. Yeah. But I mean, those 126 guys. I mean, I think you got Lil Santa Cruz there. I mean, I don't know if he's still active or not, but right. He's coming off that loss to Tank, and he fought recently, and so we got him. We got a few other guys at 126. Sure. So he's got those guys up there, and those guys are naturally bigger. They're probably cutting from 140 to 126. Right. So I think 122 is probably as good as it gets for him.
Okay. Ivory, did you have something there?
And did I read that he plans on going up to in weight after this fight, or I thought I read that he's like, that's definite, like he's going to try to make that jump.
Go chase some money, man.
Hey, I mean, go where the money's at for sure. But I mean, I don't see him going past 122. To be honest with you, I mean, he's very good, but some of those guys with that natural size, man.
Listen, it makes a difference. There's weight classes for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he goes up to 126, he's likely going to fight some guy that's cutting, like I said, cutting down from 140. Maybe even more. Those guys lose a lot of weight to get to that, and I can't picture it. I mean, I just can't picture it.
I look forward to seeing this fight. It's kind of a nice little appetizer, right? Sure. for what we getting ready for the big fight, right?
And this is a big fight too, by the way.
It is.
Let's make no mistake, right? But we have the biggest fight, this weekend, and
this is a special kind of fight.
Yeah, for sure.
That is gonna only comes around every so often. a true super fight here. I mean, a super fight. This is as big as it gets for our sport. When you've got two of the best guys pound for pound fighting each other in their primes, they're both undefeated, and they're getting ready to get it on. Errol Spence Jr., Terence Crawford, we're looking forward to that. Obviously looking forward to see the monster back in the ring, too. Real quick, on a parting note, you asked me about this, and I think we're getting it here. The heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury, who he's going to be fighting, I guess, the UFC heavyweight champion. You know, we've talked about that in a previous episode. Sure. I won't get into how I feel about that right now because I'm disappointed as shit. But
Team Ngannou.
Oh yeah, for Francis.
Knock him out. Ruin his plans, please.
Oh my God, that's just not going to happen. But Tyson Fury is going to clean his clock. But Tyson Fury also becoming a man of the camera, in front of the camera. He's coming out with a Netflix series.
Yep, that's what I seen a preview for it.
Yeah,
I don't know if it'll be in the U.S. or what, but
right.
If it is, I'm watching it because he's still an entertaining guy, the Gypsy King.
Very much.
His brother, his dad's also quite a character. So
boy.
Hey, if it comes out in the U.S., can't wait to see it for sure.
Ivory, have you seen this? Have you heard about this little Netflix special coming up, man? They're going to be following around Fury and his family.
Yeah, something like that. And it doesn't surprise me. You think Tyson Fury doesn't look at Conor McGregor and say, hey, man, I can do some things with him.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I can crack some jokes and make some money.
Listen, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how Fury is not a bigger celebrity right now. I mean, the guy's 6'9". He's one of the most athletically gifted people of that size, of that stature, definitely to ever be in a boxing ring. Yeah. I mean, you're the heavyweight champion of the world. You got a personality that's larger than life. You've got a great human campaign when it comes to him, championing for mental health. I don't know how this guy's not a bigger celebrity. I know he's huge in the UK, but I would think a lot of that would translate over here to the United States. Yeah. And it just really hasn't. For one reason or another, not saying he's not a celebrity, but I'm talking about he should be like the biggest celebrity in the world. When you're the heavyweight champion, you've got all that going on. Once upon a time, that meant you were, couldn't miss TV. Yeah. So I'm interested to see what this does for him. Just this kind of exposure, following. I mean, his name is Tyson Fury, for crying out loud. That's pretty marketable to the U.S. audience.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see. Again, just a party note. We'll see if we can get some access to that.
I'll say this much. I think it's a more compelling show. It's more compelling than the actual fight he's going to have with Ngannou. But
so sad.
So I would much rather watch that. But hey, because you ducked Usyk, because you held up the biggest fight in heavyweight boxing. Go Ngannou. Put him on his ass one time and embarrass him. Even if you don't win the fight, just put him on his ass one time.
That would be hilarious.
I would love it.
That would be hilarious. You know what? Yeah, embarrass him a little bit. That'll be okay.
Yeah, for sure. Embarrass him.
I'm a Tyson Fury fan, but
Me too.
You got to understand why I'm frustrated.
Yeah, and like I said, full disclosure, big Tyson Fury fan, but he held up the Usyk fight. I don't know what the reasons were, but he held up that fight. He didn't get the fight with Reese made. He didn't get the fight with Joshua made. Instead, he chooses to fight,
someone who's not a boxer.
Yeah, someone who's not a boxer.
Who do you guys believe that? I mean, is this a Mayweather, Logan Paul brothers? I mean, because on one side, it's waking up the eyes of boxers, and they're like Tyson Fury. They're like, all right, let me give some of these guys a shot if it's $20 million in store for me. But then on the other side, look at the fights that boxing is putting together. It's almost like they're combating that. Yeah. They're like, all right, let's quit bullshit. There's some good fights. So quit watching fighters and MMA guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, if he had kind of gone the Mayweather route and we talked about this before, where Mayweather fought McGregor after he had accomplished everything that he needed to accomplish in boxing. Right. That was just his way of going out with one final big payday.
Make some big money, yeah.
Had Tyson Fury done that after he fought Usyk and maybe indicated he didn't want to fight anymore, because he always says that, I'm going to retire. Right. But had he done that after Usyk, I don't think anybody would be mad at him.
No, not at all.
It's a lot of money.
Fight Usyk, maybe get the fight with Joshua right off into the sunset, make an extra $50, $80 million fighting someone who's not going to give you any competition. Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
But when there's still plenty of business to take care of in the heavyweight division, and then you take that fight, to me, that's just a bad look. Yeah. Can't be mad at him for trying to make the money. Everybody wants the money, and, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a bad look when you still have, the heavyweight division, you have the legacy there to take care of, and you choose this. So.
Yeah, I agree. But again, you can't fault someone for getting to that bag,
No,
man.
exactly.
Can't fault someone for getting to that bag. Listen, fellas, we're going to wrap up this show today. Thank you so much. We are so excited. We are ready for Errol Spence Jr., Terence Crawford. I got my pick. I feel I'm all by myself here with this pick.
Yeah, no, we're going to be frying some fish that weekend. Regardless of what happens, man, I might walk in here with a fish fillet after that just to rub it in. But I hope I don't even have to eat my words that day.
Yeah. We gonna see. We gonna see. Ivory, thanks for checking in with us, my brother. We appreciate you having you on the show this week.
Hey, man, I love you boys, man. Call me back anytime. We can talk it.
Whatever You Say podcast. Shout out to my man Ivory Towns, and of course, right here for Fair Ones and Fairways. You know how we do it. Until next time, keep your hands up.